The moon has fascinated and mystified many people for thousands of years. It's had a very interesting history and has an amazing future too. So let's go ahead and look at 7 incredible facts about our moon. Number 1. The moon used to appear 15 times bigger. The moon is about 4.5 billion years old, which is just a little younger than our own planet, and is about 1/4 in size. The moon travels around the Earth at 2,288 miles per hour, but it doesn't look like it's going that fast to us, because the distance between the moon and Earth is about 225,000 miles when it's closest to us, and about 252,000 miles when it's furthest away. Around 4.5 billion years ago, the moon was much closer to the Earth. According to computer simulations, the moon used to be only 15,000 miles away and would have looked 15 times bigger than it does today. The moon was still very hot back then, so it would have appeared more of a dark red colour during its early years. Number 2. The surface of the moon. Temperatures on the moon can reach as high as 127 degrees Celsius on the moon's equator and as low as -250 Celsius at its south pole. But temperatures are not always that extreme in all areas of the moon. There is no wind or oxygen in the air, so any flags put up could potentially remain standing for millions of years. In 2008, it was discovered that there is water on the moon in the form of ice. There's ice at its north and south poles, many millions of tons of it, which could be useful for future expeditions. The water is billions of years old, but once filtered, the water on the moon could be drinkable. Under the moon's surface is gold, silver, mercury, oxygen, and various other elements and compounds. The moon has only 1/6 of the gravity of Earth. So to put this into perspective, the best high jump on Earth was at a height of almost 2.5 meters. On the moon, this would equate to some people being able to jump up as high as a 2-story building. Number 3. How long does it take to travel to the moon? NASA sent men to the moon from 1968 to 1972. Their spacecraft would reach speeds of up to 25,000 miles per hour and would take about 3 days to travel from Earth to lunar orbit. In 2006, the New Horizons probe, that was destined for Pluto and beyond, flew past the moon after only 8.5 hours. It was travelling at over 36,000 miles an hour. On the other hand, the European Space Agency launched their Smart 1 satellite in 2003, which was destined for the moon. It took just over 1 year to reach lunar orbit. This probe might have been slow, but it was very economical. If you were to drive a car in a straight line from Earth to the moon at 100 miles per hour, it would take about 100 days to get there. If you were to walk the same distance, it would take about 7 years. Number 4. Who owns the moon? The simple answer to this is that no one owns the moon. A flag can be planted there from any country to show that they've reached the moon by man or machine, but this doesn't mean that they own it. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 has been signed by over 100 nations to basically agree that outer space should be free for exploration and use by all countries, and that outer space is not subject to ownership, and that the moon and other celestial bodies shall be used exclusively for peaceful purposes. So the bottom line is that no one can own a planet, moon, star, or anything else that's in outer space. Number 5. What if there was no moon? If the moon didn't exist, it would be much darker at night. There would still be some light coming from the stars in the sky, but the moon gives us many times more light, especially when it's a full moon. But with no moonlight to show the way, it would be quite difficult to see where you're stepping unless you've come prepared. Also, the tides of the oceans would be dramatically reduced. The moon's gravitational pull is the biggest reason why we have high and low tides. Without the moon, we would still have tides due to the gravitational pull of the sun, but the tides would be dramatically reduced. The moon also slows down the Earth's rotation speed, giving us 24 hours in a day. But without the moon, the Earth would spin much faster, and our days would be much shorter, perhaps as short as only 8 hours in a day. Another drastic change without the moon would be the Earth's tilt. The moon keeps the Earth at a fairly steady 23.5 degrees tilt. But without the moon, the Earth's tilt would vary, which could easily set off wild weather conditions or even an ice age. All this leads us nicely on to our next point of interest, which is number 6. Is the moon getting further away? It is true that the moon is moving further away from us, but only by about 3.8 centimetres per year, or 1.5 inches. If the moon continues to move away from the Earth at the same rate, then in 100 years from now, the moon will still only be about another 3.8 metres further away, and won't look any different. In fact, it's very likely that the moon will still look exactly the same from Earth in 1 million years' time, as by then it will still only be another 23 miles further away. In 1 billion years from now, the moon will be an extra 23,000 miles away. Viewing it from Earth, the moon will then look about 10% smaller than it does today. So the moon is moving further away from us, but only at a rate that's incredibly slow. Number 7. Future missions to the moon. In 2022, NASA sent a spacecraft to the moon. No people were on board as this was a test flight. It circled the moon, then came back to Earth. The mission was a success. In 2024, if all goes to plan, NASA will send 4 astronauts to the moon. It won't be landing on the moon, but it will circle around it, then come back home again. This is essentially another test flight. In 2025, assuming there's no delays, NASA will send 4 astronauts to the moon again, but this time they will land on the moon in the South Pole region. This will be the first time anyone has stepped on the moon in over 50 years. They will take photos and videos, collect samples and explore the area, then return home again, back to planet Earth. Beyond that, there's plans to build a space station on the moon so that people can stay there for long periods of time. This will help them study the moon in much more detail. Fuel could also be stored there, ready for flights to go to Mars. The astronauts will also get Wi-Fi on the moon, so they could, one day in the not too distant future, be inside a space station on the moon and communicating with people on Earth via social media. So that was 7 incredible facts about the moon. Thanks for watching.